Once upon a time, I thought your wedding day was meant to be the most joyful day of one's life. So much so that I dedicated 18 months to meticulously planning every aspect. When I stood before the mirror at the Grand Oak Estate, readjusting my cufflinks and reminding myself that in 2 hours I would marry the woman of my dreams, little did I know that in precisely 47 minutes, my entire life would be irrevocably altered. And it all began with a single word, a name not mine. My name is Ethan, and this is the account of how I revealed my bride at the altar. Let's rewind to that morning, June 15th. The sky was that ideal shade of blue that photographers long for. The venue was a vast estate around an hour from the city, characterized by beautifully manicured gardens and ancient oak trees adorned with fairy lights. Jessica fell in love with it the instant we toured it, and I promptly handed over the deposit check that same afternoon. Every aspect of the wedding was meticulously arranged, hosting 200 guests, a dozen-member orchestra for the ceremony, and a reception menu that required 3 tastings to perfect. I had overseen every flower arrangement, table setting, and song selection on the playlist. Given the nearly $150,000 investment in a single day, attention to detail was crucial, and I prided myself on being detail-oriented. Over 7 years, I'd grown my consulting firm from a one-person business to one with 40 employees. On that day, however, my meticulousness would prove to be something else entirely. Jessica and I had been together for 3 years. We crossed paths at a charity gala sponsored by my firm. Her professional command of the room caught my eye when we first met as an event coordinator. She possessed an ability to make everyone believe they were the sole focus in dialogue. Within half a year, we were cohabiting. By the end of the year, I had the ring. Looking back now, I recognize signs I overlooked, such as her silence on certain subjects, her reluctance to exhibit old college photos, the name Mark, her former senior-year boyfriend, she wanted me to forget. The man she claimed was domineering, their relationship having ended unhappily. She stated he had been blocked for years and desired to keep that part of her life closed off. I respected this. I never pressured. My mistake was placing complete trust in her. The wedding day followed a meticulous plan. The groomsmen were assigned the east wing of the property, while Jessica and her bridesmaids inhabited the west wing. We were not meant to cross paths until the ceremony, but Jessica had requested a private moment prior. She referred to it as a private viewing, desiring only our presence. No cameras, no spectators, simply a tranquil instant shared before the proceedings turned formal. I should have suspected something amiss from her proposal, for Jessica adores being photographed. With a documentary team scheduled for the entire event, her request for a camera-free moment was uncharacteristic, but I was too enamored to probe her intentions. We convened in a quaint garden nook hidden behind the main structure. She was breathtakingly beautiful. Her gown was an exquisite blend of timeless elegance and contemporary design, adorned with delicate lace and a flowing train that seemed to glide behind her. She had embellished her hair with small white blossoms. She was the most captivating sight I'd ever beheld. She approached me with tears brimming in her eyes, which I believed to be joyful, causing my own heart to constrict with emotion. This was the moment we had been anticipating. This was the long-awaited instant. As Jessica gently straightened my tie, slightly awry she mentioned, she was always meticulous about details. That was Jessica. Her fingers deftly handled the silk and her brown eyes gazed up at me, the ones I had fallen for. "I love you so much, Mark," she breathed softly, confidential, as if imparting a secret. However, my mind refused to grasp what I heard. There must have been an error. I must have misunderstood her. It was unimaginable she'd just invoked her former boyfriend's name, not here, not now, not on our wedding day. But I had heard correctly. I knew at the sight of her face, the slight widening of her eyes, the barely noticeable catch in her breath. She had made a mistake. "Oh my God," she said, chuckling nervously. "Ethan, I meant Ethan. I apologize sincerely. Wedding anxiety has me frazzled. My thoughts are everywhere, and you know how I can get when overwhelmed. Please don't take offense." Her smile concealed her apprehension. She was gauging my response to assess the extent of damage control required. In that instant, I did something unexpected. I mirrored her smile. "It's all right," I said. "I get wedding stress too." I embraced her, kissed her forehead, and told her she was stunning. I expressed my eagerness to marry her, saying all the appropriate words. I saw her visibly relax, thinking she had dodged a bullet, believing the issue was resolved. However, unbeknownst to her, something within me altered. A cool, analytical part of my mind had awakened. The same part that had constructed my company, scrutinized contracts, and safeguarded my interests in numerous negotiations. My focus was intensified as details are something I always take notice of, especially when they don't align. What she said seemed off. No one calls their spouse by an ex's name, unless the ex is still occupying a considerable portion of one's mind. The wedding tension couldn't have caused me to mix up the man I adore with someone I claim to have long forgotten. Something wasn't right. I was determined to uncover the truth. After some more casual conversation, I politely excused myself, claiming I needed to check on the groomsmen to ensure they were all prepared. She responded warmly, assuring she would see me at the altar. Little did we know how true those words would prove to be. Instead of attending to the groomsmen, I swiftly made my way towards my phone, which I had left in the groom's suite. My mind was whirring, but my body remained composed. I'd understood long since that panic led to flawed choices. What I required was facts. I knew Jessica's phone password. She had given it to me herself during our initial shared living, labeling it a symbol of trust. I'd never utilized it before, never felt compelled to investigate her. Yet there I was heading towards the West Wing, the bridal suite, with an altered purpose. Upon my arrival, the suite was vacant. Jessica remained in the garden while her bridesmaids tended to guest seating arrangements. Her phone lay on the vanity, plugged into a charger beside her makeup bag. I picked it up and inputted the code. The text thread was readily visible. She hadn't erased it, his name atop it, Mark. The man who was supposed to be history, the person she asserted to have blocked for years. I scrolled back to the dialogue's start. 8 months ago, our wedding planning messages started flowing, but they weren't just about the wedding. They masked 8 months of deception. At first, they seemed harmless, sharing memories and catching up on old times. However, in a matter of weeks, they progressed from coffee dates to lunches, then drinks. The time stamps revealed their clandestine meetings. While she was supposedly at her yoga class every Thursday afternoon or visiting her mother every Saturday morning, she was actually meeting him. But it was the messages from that morning that shattered me. At 6:43 a.m., she had sent him a photo, herself in her wedding dress, standing before a mirror, the same dress I had just seen in our garden, the one I paid for. The caption read, "This should have been ours. I wish it was you waiting at the altar. I love you." His response came at 7:12. "Soon after today, you will have everything you need. Then we can finally be together." For what seemed like hours, but likely just minutes, I scrutinized the conversation thread repeatedly, ensuring my comprehension. The strategy was evident. She intended to marry me, seize my resources, then abandon me for him. Texts mentioned a prenuptial agreement that I hadn't requested, as I trusted her. They discussed the timing of divorce filing and casually treated my finances as their own. Each moment of our relationship replayed in my mind with a different perspective. Every "I love you," every dreamed future, every instance where I expressed she was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, all felt staged, part of a con, and I the victim. I replaced the phone back in its original spot, returned to the groom's suite, and sat on the leather couch. 10 minutes later, my best man Liam found me there. "Hey, we've got about 30 minutes until the ceremony starts. You all right?" I gazed at Liam, our friendship tracing back to college days. He was the sole individual I confided in unreservedly. He had cautioned me about Jessica early in our relationship, expressing his unease about her, something he couldn't quite pinpoint. I dismissed his apprehensions as overprotectiveness, sharing my screenshots taken from my own phone, observing his expression transition through disbelief, anger, and resolve. He proposed we cancel the event instantly before more guests arrived. The suggestion issued from me without hesitation, having decided during those private moments on the couch. Canceling covertly would provide her an escape route. She could manipulate the narrative, feigning victimhood, preserving her reputation, and attempting this deception on someone else. However, I had invested nearly $150,000 in this wedding, paying for every flower, chair, and bottle of champagne, inviting 200 people to witness what was meant to be the happiest day of my life. If my wedding was going to be remarkable, it would be on my terms. I confirmed my intent. Liam scrutinized me for a lengthy moment, then nodded reluctantly, inquiring about my requirements. At 3:45, I assumed my position at the altar as the string quartet played a melodious tune. Guests were filing into their seats, conversing softly, admiring the decorations. Jessica's parents were seated in the front row, beaming with pride. Her mother had thanked me earlier that day for making her daughter so joyful. Standing there, I surveyed the sea of faces, friends, family, colleagues, people I respected and cared about. They had all come to celebrate what they believed was a love story. They were unaware they were about to witness something entirely different. The music transitioned, guests turned to face the back garden, and there she was. Jessica emerged from behind white curtains like a dream. Sunlight glinted on her dress, making her shine as she approached. Her father was beside her, tears already streaming down his face. She smiled, that perfect smile which had deceived me for 3 years, walking confidently down the aisle, every step calculated, each gesture orchestrated for maximum effect. The guests were moved. I heard sniffles from various directions. Someone whispered about how beautiful she appeared. In that moment, she was indeed beautiful. That was the cruelest part. Despite her betrayal burning within me, I could not deny her beauty. She reached the altar, handed her bouquet to her maid of honor. Her father kissed her cheek and took his seat. Then she turned to face me, whispering, "Hey, you," reaching out to grasp my hand. "I love you too," I replied, the words tasting bitter. The officiant began his remarks, praising love, commitment, and the sacred bond of marriage, recounting our meeting story, a tale crafted by Jessica during rehearsals. I listened attentively, nodding in all appropriate places, playing my part flawlessly. Now, he said, the couple will share their vows. Jessica produced a folded piece of paper from her dress, her hands trembling slightly. With emotion, the guests likely thought, under the weight of the moment's significance, I knew better. She read her vows. They were eloquent, speaking about our first encounter at that charity gala, knowing I was her one and only, feeling safe, loved, promising to spend the rest of her life with me. Every word was a lie, making my ensuing action easier. Upon finishing, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. The guests applauded softly. The officiant smiled and turned to me. "Ethan, your vows." I didn't reach for a piece of paper. Instead, I approached the officiant and requested the microphone. He appeared surprised but passed it over. I returned to the altar and faced the crowd. "Before I share my vows," I said clearly and firmly, "I need to reveal something else." The crowd murmured. Jessica's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. She probably anticipated a romantic grand gesture or an unexpected surprise. Perhaps I was planning one. Indeed, I was. "Ethan," I said, turning to face Jessica, "do you remember what you told me in the garden earlier today when you fixed my tie?" Her face paled slightly, just enough for me to notice. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "You said I love you," I acknowledged, "but you said something else first. You called me Mark." The murmur grew louder, heads turned, eyebrows raised. Jessica's mother placed a hand on her chest. "Ethan, please," Jessica pleaded in a whisper. "It was a mistake," she insisted. "We talked about this." "We did talk about it," I countered, "and I told you I understood, but then I did something I had never done before in our entire relationship. I looked at your phone. 6:43 a.m., I saw that you had sent a photo to Mark, wearing that dress with the caption, 'This should have been ours.' You wrote, 'I wish it was you waiting at the altar. I love you.'" I overheard gasps, someone swearing under their breath, and saw Jessica's father stand up and sit down hesitantly. At 7:12, Mark replied, saying, "Soon after today you will have everything you need. Then we can finally be together." Jessica grabbed my arm, pleading, "Ethan, stop. We can discuss this privately. Please don't do this." But I wasn't done yet. I revisited the messages, spanning 8 months, during which you were allegedly practicing yoga on Thursdays but secretly meeting him, planning to deceive and drain me financially. 8 months of deceit unfolded before my eyes. I glanced at the crowd. 200 pairs of eyes returned my gaze, frozen in various expressions of shock and disbelief. It's essential that everyone here understands that I deeply loved this woman. My love for her was boundless and unconditional. I funded the entire wedding because I wished to grant her her dream day. I turned to Jessica again. Her tears were now flowing, likely for the first time today, but they were not tears of regret. They were tears of fear of being exposed. I will not marry a woman who prefers another man at my side. I refuse to construct a future with someone who views me as merely an income source, and I shall not be humiliated in front of the people I cherish. I returned the microphone to the surprised organizer, proclaiming that the wedding was canceled, but the reception remained paid for, complete with an open bar and a 12-course meal waiting inside. I didn't want it all to go to waste, so I encouraged everyone to enjoy themselves as my parting gift. As I walked down the aisle, chaos ensued. I heard Jessica calling my name, her mother crying, raised voices, and chairs scraping against the stone pathway. Ignoring the pandemonium, Liam caught up to me at the parking lot, where he had my car keys and wallet ready without uttering a word. He merely patted my shoulder and promised to take care of everything. I got into my vehicle and drove away from Grand Oak Estate for hours, aimlessly with no specific destination, just the open road, setting sun, and an eerie, empty feeling in the pit of my stomach, as if my entire life had just transformed drastically. The consequences unfolded as expected. For several weeks, Jessica repeatedly reached out to me. Calls, messages, emails, voicemails filled with a mix of tearful apologies and angry accusations. She was attempting to reframe the situation to anyone who would listen, claiming I had humiliated her due to a trivial misunderstanding, and that I had embarrassed her in front of all her loved ones for no reason. However, I had saved screenshots of our conversations, which I had emailed to myself, Liam, and a lawyer, well before the ceremony began. Her account of events crumbled under the weight of documented proof, causing her parents to sever ties, her genuine friends to distance themselves post-revelation. Her wedding, initially a social sensation, became notorious in undesired ways. Mark, the man she had given up everything for, vanished at the first sign of scandal. As it turned out, he was uninterested in a woman entangled in controversy and lacking financial prospects. Our conversations often revolved around money, yet without access to it, Jessica was deemed insignificant. In the aftermath, I embarked on a healing journey, immersing myself in work, travel, rekindling friendships long abandoned, seeking therapy not due to brokenness, but to comprehend my blind spots, my naivety that had allowed me to be so utterly deceived. My therapist explained something that resonated deeply. Con artists do not trick because their victims are foolish. They succeed because their victims trust, because they are open-hearted, because they believe in the goodness of people. Deception does not signify personal flaws, but rather a manipulator exploiting one's kindness. 18 months have passed since that fateful day at the Grand Oak Estate. I now reside in a different part of the city, with new routines, passions, and life goals. A while ago, a mutual friend informed me that Jessica had returned to her parents' home, working part-time at a retail store and seeing a therapist herself. This news did not bring me satisfaction or vindication. Instead, I felt weary. Revenge, as portrayed in films, is not as sweet as they claim. The wedding altar offered me closure and control over a situation where I had been powerless. But it could not restore the 3 years spent with someone who never truly loved me, nor erase the dreams and future we had envisioned together. What it did provide was a choice. I could have quietly called off the wedding, letting her exit gracefully, allowing her to dictate the narrative, playing the victim and moving on to her next conquest. But instead, I chose honesty. Without any regrets expressed, some individuals have accused me of being harsh, suggesting I should have resolved the issue privately, claiming public humiliation was unnecessary. Perhaps they are correct. Perhaps I could have acted more maturely, opting for discretion over drama. However, the concept of the high road is easier to advocate when one isn't the person standing at the altar, when one hasn't invested 18 months in planning a future with someone who values me merely as a means rather than an end, when I haven't heard the woman I love whisper another man's name on what was supposed to be my happiest day. I made my decision, I bear the consequences, and given the chance, I would make the same choice again. At the core of it all, when someone attempts to rob your future, you have every right to reclaim that moment, every right to pen your own narrative. I refused to let her claim my wedding day, not my vows, not my truth, not my ending. I left that altar with nothing but my honor. Indeed, it proved more than sufficient for my narrative. If you've persevered this far, I appreciate your attention to my account. Though I recognize its difficult nature, I lived it too. I chose to disclose it so others may find solace in knowing they are not isolated, that deception can strike anyone, that placing trust does not equate to weakness, and sometimes the most effective retaliation is honesty itself. My name is Ethan, and this is my tale of the day my marriage took place.